I cannot stand empty features. Unfortunately, the empty feature in question is none other than limb damage. This feature is empty. Emptier than the AEW Rampage Arena. Okay, that probably wasn't funny, but anyway, y'all get the point. Basically, what I'm trying to say is in the grand scheme of things, limb damage means absolutely nothing. And by the laws of association, that would mean limb targeting means absolutely nothing. And the sad reality is, this continues my years long campaign with 2K games to make limb damage have a purpose. And of course, always, with that being said, WGC, let's work. Working limbs is just one of those fundamentals that is embedded in the world of professional wrestling. A lot of technical wrestlers will use this go to strategy as a way of leveling the playing field, whether it's working a leg to attack the vertical base of a larger opponent or to negate the speed advantage of smaller, high flying opponents. The one undeniable truth is that they do this with very purposeful intent. And while I can't speak for everyone, I feel like at face value, this is the type of attention to detail that is missing from the WWE 2K series. But the problem we face as fans of this series is how do we get the dev teams over at 2K Games to fully understand the importance of limb damage and how it can help this series grow exponentially from a gameplay perspective. So I guess the best way to start off is to address this feature in its current state and explain why I feel like it's an empty feature. Jumping into the most obvious, limb damage has little to no consequences. And on top of that, it impacts the gameplay very marginally. Outside of aiding in a submission gameplay, I think that's pretty much it. But if you're not a submission based wrestler, and honestly, I can't see why you would want to be because the submission gameplay in this series has been trashed for a very long time.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
It becomes painfully obvious that the limb damage feature serves no purpose. So there's really no upside to targeting limbs, nor are there any penalties for accumulating any kind of limb damage. We don't even get any halfway decent visual cues outside of a little color-coded HUD that's been there for decades now. But any kind of injury selling, such as limping or holding or favoring damaged limbs, is non-existent. And therein is the biggest problem. The game flat out refuses to acknowledge this feature in any sort of meaningful way. And that's low-key unfortunate because they are leaving a lot on the table, especially when you speak to the level of potential strategy that could be had by giving limb damage some legit purpose. The most notable improvement I feel like this feature needs is there has to be some form of consequences for accumulating limb damage. Why is a guy with severely damaged legs, at least according to the limb damage HUD, still able to run around, climb, pull off leg-based strikes, and perform lifting moves with literally no issue? This is so far removed from reality because in real life, he doesn't get around nearly as well. I mean, there's no running. He's more than likely going to be limping. He's going to climb the ropes a lot slower. Any leg-based strikes he might try to perform will probably hurt him just as much as it does his opponent. And on top of that, any lifting moves he might try to attempt may just result in his legs giving out. This is how limb damage should work. So let's translate this into the WWE 2K world. And for this example, we'll use someone like CM Punk. Let's say Punk has a badly damaged leg and he goes to hit the GTS. This could play out in a couple of different ways. One, he goes to lift the opponent but collapses due to his injured leg. Two, he actually hits the GTS but then immediately starts to sell his leg injury, basically canceling out the pin combo ability and making him have to crawl for the pin. Three, and this is a little more far-fetched, but we could introduce an injured finisher concept. Very similar to the tired finisher concept, but this would see your wrestler hitting a weaker version of his finisher. It would be cool if they could like animate it, maybe kind of make it look botch style almost. But this would basically half the strength of your finisher and half the finisher effect on your opponent's pinfall meter. So it wouldn't be as hard for him to kick out. And of course, there will also be a scenario where things just play out as normal. But this scenario alone shows how limb damage can not only penalize the ones who are on the receiving end, but it also rewards your opponent for strategically targeting your limbs. I also feel like the negative effects should vary depending on the severity of the limb damage. For example, if you only have yellow leg damage, then it may affect your climbing speed, and there's maybe like a 10% chance that you'll get the injured finisher animation or your leg giving out. Orange damage, that's when you'll start to see yourself limping. Any leg based strike attacks will make you sell the injury. There's a higher chance that your leg will give out during lifting moves. And then, of course, with red, you'll see the penalties kick in a lot more frequently. Another thing I would love to see is to have different limbs have their own unique penalties. For example, let's take a look at head damage. If you are going to have a stun debuff in the game, here's a crazy idea. Why not tie it to head damage? Instead of having to spam combos or use moves that don't even target the head, is wild goofy in my opinion. Like, seriously, why am I being stunned because a guy dropped the elbow on my foot? To me, it just makes more sense to tie any kind of stun to the head damage. I would also like to see head damage affect the reversal windows. You know that old wrestling adage, shaking out the cobwebs? Personally, I feel like the more head damage you accumulate, the smaller your reversal window should be. But that's just me. Let me know what you guys think about this. Like, do you feel like that's fair? And are you a fan of the way that stuns currently work in the game? Comment down below and let me know, man. Speaking of things that should affect your reversal window, I also would like to add bleeding and the poison mist are two things that I feel like should affect the reversal windows too. For those two, we'll say strike reversals. We'll limit it to strike reversals. This should affect your strike reversal timing. I also feel like head damage should make you more susceptible to being knocked out. And this should not be limited to just strikes and grapples, but I would also like to see it make its way into the submission gameplay. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. Yeah, man, a pass out feature for the submission system. I just feel like this would be a unanimous W. Being able to recreate some of those iconic moments like Stone Cold versus Bret Hart, it would just be truly phenomenal to see. For arm damage, we could go with something like a strike debuff. Also, there would be a higher chance for failed lifting moves, and it could also affect your ability to complete combos. As for body damage, I would like to see this have an effect on stamina. Not just your overall stamina, but stamina recovery as well. Goes without saying, but it should also have an effect on your ability to perform lifting moves. Also, any bumps you take, whether it be offensive or defensive, would have a chance to trigger a sale animation. So that means like even if you are on the offensive and you deliver something like a suplex, you would sell the body damage and drastically reduce your chance for any follow-up offense, thus giving your opponent a chance to possibly recover before you do. This would also kick in for aerial attacks such as moonsaults, crossbodies, Samoan splashes, and any type of senton attacks. Basically, limb damage should result in some physical and statistical penalties, along with some unique visuals and proper selling animations. If 2K were to just stick with this philosophy alone, they could really legitimize this feature. That's my take on it, but I would love to hear from you guys, so please chime in and comment down below. Let me know, how would you personally legitimize limb damage as a feature? I want to truly thank y'all for stopping by and giving me a piece of your time. Do me a favor, if you rock with the content, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. It really does help out the channel. Subscribe if you have not already. And if you would like to help me get more eyes on the channel, please do not hesitate to share the video. All glory to God. Love y'all. And remember to always try to be a blessing to somebody. Yay.